Hello and welcome back to the Gives in the Bank recruiting podcast on BuckeyeScoop.com. This is the Wednesday, July 22nd episode. We are going just the two of us today, just myself and Bill Greene, of course, and it'll be kind of a State of the Union type show. We're going to kind of address each Ohio State position here, but before we get into that, Bill, I just wanted to give you a chance to give your thoughts on the Jordan Hancock commitment. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this because we kind of beat it to death on the website here, and we also have something else coming a little bit later this week detailing that commitment. But just wanted to give Bill a chance here to kind of give your thoughts on Ohio State landing one of its top targets.
Yeah, he was a top-of-the-board guy, Jordan Hancock. They wanted him forever. They actually thought they had him a while ago, and we're thrilled about that. The commitment to Clemson kind of surprised them. They never gave up, and he never gave up on them either. So what I would say was once you eliminate a little bit of the emotion of this, what they basically did was they traded Devontae Smith and got Jordan Hancock. And we both think the world of Devontae as a person. We like him as a player. And I hated to not see him in this class because I do not have him as the lowest rated DB in this class by far. But if you're going to make a trade and you're going to lose Devontae Smith and you're going to get Jordan Hancock, there's not a coach in the country that wouldn't do that. And that is, again, no knock on Devontae. He's one of my favorite kids. But this is just when you look talent for talent, player for player, what you lost compared to what you got, this is a net positive for Ohio State in the long run, I believe. So that would be my final thought there is the more top-of-the-board guys you can add, the better this class is going to be. And Jordan Hancock was a top-of-the-board kind of guy.
Yeah, definitely a huge summer pickup there for Ohio State after, kind of laugh about a little bit of a commitment drought there for a couple months after that ridiculous spring they had. So definitely a big one to get back on the board there. Like I said, we're going to do kind of a state of recruiting podcast. Probably a good time for that as we hopefully ramp up towards the season here. But we're going to go, kind of position by position here. This will be 2021 related. We're not going to go and get too far ahead of ourselves yet on 22 with a state of recruiting thing where, I think they're still a little bit behind on kind of forming who their priorities are at this point with the lack of evaluation opportunities this offseason. So we're going to keep this to 2021. There's not a ton of room left. I would venture to guess there's somewhere in the neighborhood of half a dozen spots left. And that's probably half a dozen spots if things go well, if they land some guys. I mean, it could be 4 or 5 spots, I guess, if they don't land all the guys they want. But I'm operating under the notion it's going to be probably a full 25-man class. But we'll start with quarterback. That's going to be an easy one, Bill. But you can kind of lead us off here. What's your take? I mean, I guess the best way to do this would probably with quarterback would be what's your take? I guess long term there on the numbers. You don't see them taking a second one in this class, right?
No chance. McCord was their guy. He's a top of the board kind of guy. He was someone they targeted early. They got him. They're totally thrilled with him. This would be a 180 from last year when, they had Jack Miller. I never felt they were totally sold on Jack. And so I thought the risk for them of bringing in a CJ Stroud, and you might have ticked Jack off and lost him, was well worth the risk. And they did it, and it worked out. They kept both of them. Well, this year, they're not messing with McCord. McCord's their guy. This is an A-plus finish. You got one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and away you go. To me, it's the door shut. They got their guy. They're thrilled as can be, and, time to go to somewhere else because that's an A-plus to me.
Yeah, here's the one thing, though, and I guess this is the one position where we're really going to have to kind of discuss this is what are they doing numbers-wise in that room, though? Because, obviously let's be real here. I mean, this is it for Justin Fields. Hopefully there's a season, there's a long season, and it's a successful season, but this is going to be it for Justin Fields. He's going to be in the NFL at this time next year. You're losing Gunnar Hoke. That leaves you with McCord, Miller, Stroud going into next season. That is a lean. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I like those three guys. I mean, that's certainly quality there, but that's not. I don't think that's the number they want. Do they troll the transfer portal a little bit and look for maybe a Gunnar Hoke type of guy to bring in the spring?
That I could see. I do not see them bringing in another freshman quarterback because, number one, you're going to get a guy that can't play. A young freshman, to be next year that wants to come in and sit behind Miller, Stroud, and McCord must not think highly of himself, and you're just setting up a transfer then. Now, if you can get an older guy who's been maybe knocked around a little bit, would think it's a privilege to come to Ohio State, knowing up front, look, we want to play these young guys. Now, if they can't play, if injuries come, then you're going to have to play. But, be very honest with the guy. And I think there are Gunnar Hoke types all across college football right now. So I think that would be the way to go. A stopgap guy with 1 year of eligibility or two, you get a guy that gets a little maturity in the room and a guy, honestly, that you really hope never has to play, an insurance policy. So that's how I would play it. I would not bring another freshman quarterback in. You're just forcing somebody out the door. That's all you'd be doing if you bring two quality quarterbacks into this class. And I can't see a second quality quarterback wanting to come in and bang with McCord, Miller, and Stroud anyway. So then you take a lower rated guy who's not going to play anyway. No, I would go get the next Gunnar Hoke. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't. They're not going to take a 2021 quarterback outside of McCord, obviously. I would definitely do the Hoke thing, though. I mean, not look. The talk of next offseason is going to be Miller and Stroud and how that's going to shake out. And I'm sure the hope is that regardless of how that shakes out, that the other guy at least plays in Columbus in 2021. But you look around the country at how hard it is to keep a quarterback room together, and I think you have to take a grad transfer type of guy in the spring.
I agree.
I think you have my goodness, if it becomes super obvious next spring which of the young quarterbacks is the best one, it's not unfathomable that someone could transfer before the season next year. And then you have two quarterbacks. So
no, I agree. That's why I would bring in, the next Gunnar Hoke, because he was perfect for what they were looking for. And, I think it's easy to get a guy like that. I think there are guys like that all across college football that have stayed with their school, have gotten passed by a young guy. And, would you rather sit at Tulsa or would you rather have the opportunity, to be in the same position at an Ohio State with the thought that Stroud gets hurt, McCord's not ready, and all of a sudden you're a quarterback on a national championship contender. I think that kind of guy would be easy to find.
Yeah, I think that's what they will do. I think that's what they kind of have to do, actually, when you start to really break that room down. But so that's kind of the only intrigue there, obviously, when it comes to the immediate future of the quarterback position. I think we're gonna say the same thing here at running back, I'm sure, which is that Ohio State is finished. They've got two fantastic players, Travion Henderson, Evan Pryor. Any intrigue there at all, Bill? I guess, the biggest intrigue there is that, Travion Henderson has announced that he's not going to transfer anywhere. He's simply going to work out at his high school for the next several months and then early enroll at Ohio State. Evan Pryor, obviously a good compliment to Henderson there as well. So they've got two good ones there. Any intrigue there, or should we just move on again?
Yeah, I think it's an A or an A plus, and you move on. With the Henderson deal, I think every position is different. So a running back sitting out his senior year, I'm totally okay with. Okay, less hits, less chance of the ACL. In that position, you either have it or you don't. You're not. It's hard to teach vision and cutting ability. He's either got it or he doesn't, and he has it. So him sitting out a year, I think is fine. And O lineman, I would not be okay with. They need as many reps as they can get. They need as much experience as they can get, as much coaching as they can get. So it depends on the position to me. But a Travion Henderson running back guy sitting out his senior year, totally cool with that. Totally fine with that. Build your body, get stronger, get faster. The vision will be there. The cutting ability will still be there. And he could play next year as a freshman, as far as I'm concerned, as good as he is. So I think they're done there. And I think they're in good shape there.
Yeah, and as weird as it's, I've always thought that I was almost strange how comfortable I was with that commitment the last few months in terms of, even though he's never been to Ohio State, which just sounds so weird to say. I never got the feeling they had any problems there. He's been so all in with the class, but I also think this kind of cements that he's taking this approach. I mean, if he moves out of state, then who knows at that point, what he might have to be doing with recruiting. I think this is yet another clear signal that he, despite not having visited to this point, is 100% in the class, not looking around, not looking to take other visits when things open back up. Just seems like he's very focused on getting to Columbus and starting his Ohio State career. So I think that was that was kind of one of my takeaways from this. All right, wide receiver. Kind of a one-man show here, but where do you have receiver right now? Is it a one-man show, or should we be maybe a little more open-minded here?
No, I think it's a one-man show. I think it's Emeka Egbuka, and I think they're getting him, by the way. I think it's as near done as done could be. And I think even, the Armageddon scenario with no visits, I still think they'll get him. So I think they feel pretty good about where they're at with Emeka. And I think, would he commit today or next month or 3 months from now, I think they would be done. There's no reason to keep adding, stud wide receivers, because he gets to the point where you're just forcing people into the portal. So I think Emeka would add the talent they want to the room in this class, but not overload it. So I think they'd like to get him and then draw a line through the position. It would still give you 7 in a 2-year period, which, that's kind of pushing the boundaries. But you get up around 8, you're putting somebody in the portal at some point. So I think Emeka would be the exclamation point at the end of the sentence when you're talking wide receivers.
This is another thing. It sounds weird to say for, a kid who, is living in Washington State, all the way across the country. But I actually, if there's no visits this fall, I think that actually helps Ohio State. I don't think he's going to Washington. I don't think Clemson's real at this point. I don't think there's much going on there at all between those two. And that leaves Oklahoma, which, for my money is the school Ohio State. If you had to be concerned about a school, I would think it'd be Oklahoma. They have the offense, the system. They've sent several receivers to the NFL recent years. They're doing a good job at that position. They have Caleb Williams recruiting him. He's never been to Oklahoma. So if he can never visit Oklahoma, that's one hell of a choice if he would end up there, So I think Ohio State's good regardless of what the visit situation is in the fall. And again, I think, as weird as it sounds for a kid that lives, a couple thousand miles away from Ohio, that it actually wouldn't hurt and maybe even help them if there weren't visits this fall with that specific kid. Yeah, I don't think, assuming nothing goes sideways there, I don't think that they're going to be actively looking. If Christian Leary called him and said, hey, I'm not so sure about my Alabama commitment, I'd like to visit in a couple months. I tend to think they'd entertain that if it's an elite slot guy, but I don't think they're going to be super active in terms of seeking that stuff out. So we're going to move on to kind of a more interesting position, of course, which is tight end. And that I say that because the notion for so long was two tight ends. Bill, do you still think it's two? When we look at this class in February, are there going to be two tight ends in this class?
Boy, that's a great question. I think there's a chance, and I think, for there to be a second tight end in this class, there's probably going to have to be football in the fall. They were never fully sold on their evaluation of Jack Pugh. And I know they liked Jack, but they needed to see him in camp. They wanted to go to his school and work him out. That's all gone. And he is not a take today. And nothing has happened with Jack Pugh since the last time they saw him last fall to make him a take today. They need to see him in person. Now, if they go see him play this fall and he's unbelievable and he's way better than he was last year, I think they're going to offer him and try to pry him away from Wisconsin. So we'll see there. I've seen the Mitchell Evans kid in person. I like Mitchell. I think Mitchell's a left tackle going forward. So I think Ohio State, I think they view him probably as a Jake Ballard type tight end, that they're really not recruiting those kind of guys right now. So I think for Mitchell to get an Ohio State offer, they would have to see him in person this fall. And then he's playing quarterback. So it'd be kind of hard to project him as either a tight end or a tackle. So it makes him a real tough take for them. So, I think if they have to sit with one, I think they'd be fine with that. To take that second, nobody's there to be the second right now. So that person's going to have to do something on the field this fall to bring him from maybe to yes. So that would be my answer. I could see it happening, but I think they'd be fine if they just stuck with one.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be an evaluation process there, I think, this fall. They're obviously they're still looking at Jordan Dingle out of Kentucky, who camped with Ohio State, I believe, 2 years in a row before this summer, obviously. That's a guy that, maybe they turn the heat up on this fall. They've never quite made that big push there yet. So that's going to be something that would have to change with some senior film. There's Michael Trigg out of Tampa, Florida area. Seems like there's mutual interest there. Kid's from Tampa. He's never been to Ohio State. That would seem a tough match at this point. Would seem that he would have to visit and maybe, again, get some senior film. So it's interesting. This is the second year in a row where we're going down this road of, they're taking two tight ends. They're taking two tight ends. And then it's, actually, maybe they're not taking two tight ends. So that's going to be, I think, one interesting thing to watch this fall. And I think they can kind of use this as kind of a wild card or a bonus slot where they don't have to do anything if they don't want to. And they can, if they see something they really like, they can go for it. And obviously, if they want to, take away from another position or something, they can, go and grab a second tight end if they want. If they want to take one less guy, maybe if they miss on Derek Davis or something, they just don't feel like they need to take another defensive back. You take a second tight end. So it's kind of a flex spot right now, and that'll be interesting to follow. Offensive line, they have two committed right now, two very good ones, two guys I really like. Donovan Jackson out of Houston, Texas. Ben Chrisman out of Ohio. Some tough sledding there lately, losing J.C. Latham. Don't think Rocco Spindler's going their way. A few, Jagger Burton is an interesting one just because he he pushed back a decision date in August to make visits, and now it's like, okay, is he even going to be able to make visits? How do you see the offensive line right now? And, with 2 in the fold already, where do you think that number is going to fall when we get to signing day in February?
Well, I think 4 was the target date, and they wanted, last year it took a ton of projects. So I think this year it was 4 studs, for lack of a better word. I like Ben Chrisman, and I know you do too, more than most other people do. I mean, it seems like his ranking falls weekly. Don't understand that. I mean, he's the same player today that you thought he was last November. And the Jackson kid, I think, is fantastic. And I know the measurables aren't ideal, but I think he can play tackle. So those 2 are really, really good. So, check the box there. But, they wanted Latham really bad, and they thought they were getting Latham too. They felt pretty good about that one, and I think it's gone. I don't think it's coming back, even with visits. Tristan Lee, I don't know. I know you feel kind of good about it. I know Alex feels kind of good about it. There's nothing I'm hearing that makes me think they're getting him. So until I do, I'm kind of, probably the least optimistic of the group here. So on him, Jager Burton, he was going to commit, a couple of weeks ago, or he had it set and changed his date a couple of weeks ago. I don't know what could have possibly changed for him to make him choose Ohio State right now. I think he needed an official visit and probably an unofficial visit to get loved up, to get, kind of turned away from Kentucky. And that's where I think he's headed right now. If I had to put some sort of odds on it, I would have Kentucky like the 60-40 choice. I think Bama's now, that's done. It's Kentucky or Ohio State, but I would favor Kentucky there. So once you run through Lee, Spindler, Burton, Nolan Marucci, they're not getting him. Now you're down to the Ohio guys again. And I like Rankle, and I know you like him, but he's not J.C. Latham, and he's not Tristan Lee either. So he would be a good fallback plan B dude, but I think that would be viewed as a, like a miss. If you come out of this with the 2 guys you got now and then Rankle and, Remack or Rodriguez, I don't know, man. I would not call that a major success. They expected more this year. They were set up with a lot of the highly rated guys. They were right there on the doorstep, and it seems like they're not, they're not in a great position right now, but we have a long way to go. So, far be it from me to raise the panic flag in July, but I don't think they're sitting, in late July where they thought they'd be sitting right now. So we'll see what happens, and if they pull Tristan Lee in the next month, then that changes the whole outlook of O-line recruiting. They need to pull another stud and then drop back and get, if you got to get one of the Ohio projects, that would be fine. But I really thought they needed 3, maybe 4 monsters in this class, sure things, after the projects they took last year.
Yeah, I think this, again, and you kind of alluded to it there, I think the issue right now is, okay, if they have to go and take a Terrence Rankle as like your 4th guy, that's fine. I don't see a problem there. I think the problem becomes now, what if you have to take 2 of the Ohio guys?
Right.
And that's not taking anything away from them. I mean,
no, they're good players.
I think there are. I am intrigued with some of those guys. Rankle, Paul Rodriguez, Remack. I'm intrigued by some of those guys. But again, you thought you were getting, this class could have been the 2 they have now, J.C. Latham, Jager Burton.
Yes, that was what we thought, that was pretty logical too. That looked pretty logical about, 6 months ago. I
2 months ago.
That was going to be, I thought, I thought that
yeah.
was going to be the class. When I walked out of the Orlando Under Armour camp, was the last camp before the shutdown. That was the end of February. I thought, man, they're getting Latham for sure. And everything I had on Burton was that they were the leader. So things have changed. Things have definitely changed, and you got to get it turned back around. And you turn it around with Spindler, or Lee or getting Latham back or somebody a monster. Like I say, I like Rankle, I like Rodriguez, I like Remack. Would I take any of those guys over Latham? No. Would I take any of them over Tristan Lee? No. And neither would any college coach in the country. This is all about building the best roster you can possibly build. And if Hartline had taken the equivalent of, Rankle or Remack, people would be up in arms because he just gets stud after stud after stud. So, and I think it's probably fair to expect the same thing on the O-line. I mean, we'll see. There's time to go. It's too soon to panic, too soon to, get the bow and arrow out and fire away, but it doesn't look as good today as it did a while back.
No, and, man, this is the one position group where I'm like, boy, they need visits this fall because you're not getting Tristan Lee, in my opinion, without a return visit. I think LSU leads right now. I think you need a visit to turn that one around. I don't think you're getting Burton without a return visit, at least one.
Yeah.
We just saw Jordan Hancock surprise us a little bit and do it before a return visit, but it's hard to envision them getting J.C. Latham without a return visit. So it just they need some visits here, and they need to get this going. It's interesting. I mean, I really like the two guys they have. I think they're both top 100 players. Donovan Jackson might be even better than that. Donovan's pretty freaking good. But we kind of went through this last year where early in the cycle, 5 or 6 man O-line class. Justin Rogers was going to be a guy. There was a bunch. They had a kind of national list.
Yep.
And it kind of sputtered a little bit. It kind of sputtered. And I don't know. You don't want to have that happen 2 years in a row. So this will be interesting to see what happens here these next 6 months at this position. This is the one I am really kind of focused on the next 6 months or so. See what they come up with, because I think that's going to be interesting. But okay, well, we're on to the defense. Defensive line, obviously, Larry Johnson is hoping to sign one of the best defensive line classes Ohio State signed probably ever, if they can finish this off the way they want to finish this off. Is it definitely 2 spots? Is it 3 spots? If they can find an edge rusher, is it, more of a just who they can get thing, and they could only take one more if they wanted to, if they don't get all the guys they want? Kind of how do you see defensive line right now?
Yeah, I think they'll make room for monsters, man. If you got you take all you can get. No projects need apply in this room this year. Okay, so I think a big thing to me is the recruitment of Temesi. I think you need to recruit that kid as if he was an uncommitted recruit. I would never slip an inch there, and I think they know that. So I would recruit him a lot harder than I recruit Jack Sawyer or Mike Hall right now. Temesi to me is one to watch. So I would bang him real hard, stay on top of that one. With JT Tuimoloau, I don't know what you can do. Your hands are kind of tied there, and I think it's a total opposite situation of Emeka Egbuka, even though they're in the same state. I really think they need to get JT on campus, and I don't know how you do that. Right now it's tough, but I do know for a fact that I was told, someone I trust, that the NFL draft is the most important issue to JT. And you look at Washington's history of putting D linemen in the NFL, it's pretty sad. And you look at Ohio State with Larry Johnson, and it's elite. So that's really what I'm hanging my hat on, is that this kid is making this a 4-year decision. And if I got to go 2,000 miles away from home to a place I've never seen before, there is the G. Scott influence there, I think, can help. There's the trust factor with Larry Johnson that I think he's very believable. He's trustworthy. He's that dad, grandfather guy that I think you would trust him when he tells you he's going to put you in the NFL if you do everything he tells you to do, because we've seen him do that before. So I feel good about JT, but man, you'd love to see that guy come on a 48-hour official visit. They would lock that thing up completely. So, that's where that is. Tywone Malone, I think they're in great shape there. Visit, no visit, whatever. I mean, I think they're really good there with him. And assuming that, they get both of those guys and keep Tamisi, I mean, that's an amazing class. But like you said, if you get a speed edge rusher who's elite that wants in, well, you got to make room at that point. Why would you take a second tight end over an elite edge rusher? So I think the position group is set up, to be really, really elite, one of the best we've ever seen. And so, but a lot depends on, JT, and can they get him on campus? So that's kind of my feelings there. Continue to recruit Tamisi, continue to do what you're doing with Tywone Malone. You're in great shape there. And then, man, figure out a way, to get JT to a Maloau signature by whatever means necessary. Get that threesome there to go with what you got. And my God, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, my thing with Malone right now is, visit or no visit. I like where they stand there.
Agree. Yep.
If you like where they stand with Malone today, you should like where they stand with Malone in 4 months if there's been no visits. I mean, in fact, I think the one interesting thing is, some of these Southern schools are really throwing baseball at them. And if there's some issues with, the non-rev, baseball's, well, I shouldn't say baseball's a non-rev sport. Baseball's a revenue generator in certain parts of the country. But, with all these schedules potentially getting moved around, I know no one wants to touch football and keep that in the fall, but, between that and maybe not being able to get down to some of these Southern schools and have them really pitch the baseball program to you, that may actually benefit Ohio State in some ways. And again, I'm not sounding the alarms here on JT, but again, if you asked me, okay, Mark, how do they not win that? What would be your number one concern about losing JT to a Pac-12 school? It'd be like, well, if they never get him on campus, that would be the very, if you told me this is how they're going to lose him, I would say by never getting him on campus. That would be my number one fear if I were Ohio State, is that I never got him on campus. I think there's enough. I think he's insulated a little bit with that. Again, with the G. Scott factor, he's known Brian Hartline for so long. Brian Hartline's been recruiting him forever. Trusts Larry Johnson, the NFL pedigree there. There's a lot of things that I think would still benefit Ohio State. I'm not saying it would be a deal breaker, but if you're Washington, if you're Oregon, if you're USC, you are hoping there are no visits.
Right.
I mean,
no doubt.
You just are. So that'll be something to watch for sure. We'll move on to linebacker here. And I think linebacker is interesting. I'm going to get your take first, though. Are they done? Should they be done? Should there be more urgency to add another one? What do you think about linebacker?
Yeah, I don't think they're done. I've got Jalen Johnson as the Darren Lee type linebacker. Pete Warner played that spot. So I've got Jalen as a linebacker. Carrico I like a lot better now than I did early in his junior year. So I think he's fine, really good. But then if you can add, an absolute stud, you take him. I would not take a project. I would not take a flyer here, but I would sure take Barrett Carter or Race John Davis. And I think they're in the game there with Race John more than Barrett Carter. I know that, the Hancock situation looks like it could help Ohio State with Barrett Carter, but I don't think so yet. I've never heard anything that makes me think that. But Race John Davis is so interesting to me because I think he really, really, really wants to visit Ohio State. And Ohio State can't wait to get him on campus. And if that 48-hour trip can occur, I would probably, put an equal sign on Race John Davis to Ohio State.
Wow. Yeah, that there's always been something there for me. I mean, he visited twice. I mean, he's a kid from
I know
California.
it.
He's made two unofficial visits. Um, I do believe they were runner up to LSU the first time around, so I don't think they'd be coming out of left field here. Yeah, I'm interested in that one for sure. I'm with you on Carter in terms of I don't see it happening. Again, are chances better now that Jordan Hancock's in the class? Sure. They went from 0% to whatever, to 1% or 2%. I don't think this became all of a sudden a real thing yet. We'll see. And again, I look back, I'm like, okay, what happened the first time around? Well, the first time around, Barrett had a top 16 with 15 Southern schools on it, and probably Georgia runner-up. So I don't know that Ohio State stands to gain a whole lot of ground there. But, if you love a guy like that, you don't stop recruiting him. I mean, so if you're Al Washington, you continue to work there. You're kind of playing with house money right now. You don't have to add a linebacker. And, I think I would just kind of focus on those two guys. I wouldn't take one just to take one. I don't think, like I said, I think they need to come out of this with 4 offensive linemen. Do they need to come out of this with another linebacker? No, I don't think they do, especially because I think next year looks pretty good there.
Right.
So, yeah, maybe do some film evaluations, maybe see if there's any decommitments coming up. If the fall gets a little crazy, goes a little sideways if visits open up, go from there. All right, defensive backs. We'll break this down. We'll go corner safety. We'll do corner first here. Look, I think, will they keep some guys warm at corner? I think they will, just because Denzel Burk has never visited. There's no reason to think that J.K. Johnson and Jordan Hancock are wavering, but those are guys who every program in the country wants and are going to keep on. And so I think the smart thing to do is to not completely shut off communication there, just in case, whether it's Denzel Burke saying, well, I've never visited, maybe, if visits don't happen in the fall and Denzel Burke decides, well, maybe I should play in the Pac-12. Maybe I should stay closer to home. Maybe I shouldn't make this leap. If, just in case, I would keep some bodies warm there, but I don't think they're going to add. Do you agree with that? Or do you think they're going to add still?
Well, no, I agree with you. And I kind of feel the Denzel Burke commitment. I feel the same way you do. That one, for some reason, isn't sitting well with me. And I don't have anything specific, just little rumblings about, him possibly reconsidering and maybe them reconsidering. So that one I'm not sure is etched in stone right now. I'm kind of anxious to see if anything can happen with Jalen Davies. I mean, you have better information there than me, but, what are your thoughts on Jalen Davies maybe coming into this class to replace Burke somehow? You think that's far-fetched?
I think it's hard to make that leap without any senior. They could have had Jalen Davies a month ago.
Right.
And those were the two. I mean, they were looking at Denzel Burke. They're looking at Jalen Davies. At first they wanted both of them to visit, but they had been out to the school to see Burke. Ryan Day had been out to the school at some point, and for whatever reason, whether it was tape or just they liked. I know they liked Denzel as a person quite a bit. They decided, as the visits kept getting pushed back, the dead period kept getting pushed back, that they weren't going to just let this ride into the fall, and that they were going to go with Denzel Burke. But the thing that's so weird about that one to me is with Jalen Davies, it was always, well, they'll get him if they greenlight him. And with Denzel Burke, it was never that. It was always, he's probably going to play in the Pac-12 anyway. And then all of a sudden it 180'd. And so that's why I'm a little like, okay, let's just stay on top of that one. That to
Right,
me is
right.
kind of in the same boat as like Tunisi, where it's like, in right now, no real reason to think he's not going to be in a few months, but, that doesn't feel as solid maybe as some of the other ones that they have. And just,
I agree.
just
I
something to
agree.
maybe stay on top of here the next few months. But I think, as long as there's no, cold feet by anyone, I think this would be the 3 at corner because you still have a couple of flex guys as well. So I don't see them adding a Jalen Davies to what they have right now. But again, something goes wrong with Burk, or who knows? Maybe, what if here's another scenario? What if one of or both of Cameron Brown and Seven Banks? What if Cameron Brown and Seven Banks have unbelievable junior seasons, and you lose at least one of them early to the NFL? Do you call Jalen Davies and see if he'd be your 4th corner? Or do you, kind of, what do you think about that? Because now the numbers are getting a little scary at that point. Even
Right,
though I don't know that a
right.
freshman helps you so much as maybe going to maybe go to the portal. And that's, do you see, let's play the what if. Like Cameron Brown, great year off to the NFL. Do you play the portal game to keep a little roster spacing to get you a little more instant impact guy next year, or do you entertain trying to add a Jalen Davies to what they already have?
Yeah, that's a good question. And this is where Jordan Battle affects you today. Clark Phillips affects you today. Those were big losses. So that's an interesting point you bring up. I don't know. I haven't seen a tremendous success rate for the transfer portal for instant impact DBs. So I don't know. I'd be a little leery of that. I think I'd rather go get a freshman. I'd rather have Jalen Davies than a transfer guy, I think. That's a good question. I have to think about that one a little more. And then we're going to have to see Banks and Brown just blow up and be, high draft picks before that would need to be entertained. But I think it's real. I think it's something that they're going to consider that. And we've seen the history of Ohio State corners. You don't need to start 3 years to be looked at highly.
No, we went from wondering if Marshawn Lattimore would ever reach his potential and would ever be if his hamstrings would ever hold up for him to, oh, he's gone in about 5 months. So it can happen fast.
It can happen. I'm not ruling that out at all. So that could be something that, they have to revisit in October,
Right. Which brings us to safety, kind of wrap this up. Clearly Derek Davis is the guy there. Is this a Derek Davis or bust thing, or do you feel if they would miss on Derek Davis that they would need to replace him with another safety prospect in the class? What are your feelings on that and where things stand there with the numbers? Is it definitely one more, or is it only one more if it's Derek Davis?
Yeah, right now I think it's one more if it's Derek Davis. I know that they really like Jansen Dunn, and I'm in 100% agreement with them right there. I think he's ranked way too low. I would have him way higher if I was ranking the Ohio State commitments from 1 to where are they at now, 19. He wouldn't be where he is by the national rankings. So I love that kid. Turrentine's good. I know they like Derek Davis a lot. I think he's going to Penn State. I think you feel more optimistic about Ohio State landing him than I do. I know that, I know some guys at Penn State, and they are very, 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 very convinced that they're getting Derek Davis. So either they're being, a little misled and a little off the trail here, because I know you kind of think that, Ohio State and Derek Davis are in pretty decent shape, correct?
I do. It's interesting. Here's what I can say about that. When I talk to Derek, And we go, I ask him all the normal questions about all the schools that are recruiting him. He immediately goes to, I like this coach. I like their tradition at defensive back. This program wins a lot. I want to be part of a winning program. He goes to that for Penn State and LSU and Clemson and Georgia and USC. And then I bring up Ohio State, and the conversation shifts to wanting to be a business owner, life after football program, Columbus being, a big city in terms of a college town. It's not a small college town. It's a city of 1 million people. The conversation just shifts. And I have no other explanation for it other than that I think he's more into Ohio State than people realize. There are some other things that I think help Ohio State. And yes, the winning and the NFL stuff, that does help. And he's even brought up, just having like their quarterbacks they have. He's like, well, I don't want, you don't want to be part of a program where the offense isn't, kind of carrying its weight type of thing. And he likes, the CJ Stroud, Jack Miller, Kyle McCord pipeline at quarterback, and, how that offense is going to look and going against Julian Fleming in practice and all that good stuff. But it's very distinct. You can ask him the exact same question about the other schools on his list, and he'll give you the standard recruiting answers of, I like this coach, they develop DBs, they win a lot of games. And I'm just telling you, the conversation shifts when you talk about Ohio State. I think it's very interesting. I think it's clearly Ohio State or Penn State. Those are all the relationships lie on those two coaching staffs. Those are the longest relationships he has. The dad is from Cleveland, played at Glenville for Ted Ginn Sr. back in the 90s before Glenville really became Glenville, just as it was starting to become Glenville. And and then, of course, the connection to Terry Smith, legendary Gateway coach. So clearly all the relationships are those two programs. It's going to be one of those two programs. I don't care if visits come back or not. I don't think he's going anywhere else than one of those two. But I am more optimistic than most on Ohio State. I think they have a very good chance here. But we'll see. Well, that should just about do it. We've went pretty long here, but we wanted to kind of just give a rundown and kind of like I said, a state of Ohio State recruiting 2021, and kind of give everyone a feel for where things are at as we kind of hit the stretch run. We appreciate you guys listening as always. You can catch all our stuff on BuckeyeScoop.com. We'll have a lot of stuff throughout the week. Moving forward, Bill's going to have his chat tomorrow on Thursday, of course, which is always a hit on the message board. So you can get in there and chat with Bill, ask him anything, ask him about the Pittsburgh Pirates, whatever you want to ask him about. But we'll sign off here. We appreciate you listening.